Welcome to District Command Central, your go-to source for the latest news and updates on the Washington Commanders. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a play. It's funny how quickly the mood around an NFL team can swing from despair to cautious optimism, isn't it? Just a few days ago, Washington Commanders fans were bracing for another rough week. Another Monday night where they'd have to watch a patched-up roster try to hang on against the defending champion Kansas City Chiefs. The season, which had started with so much excitement and fresh energy under new head coach Dan Quinn, had slowly started to unravel. The Commanders were 3-4, their rookie quarterback Jayden Daniels was out, and the offense looked lost without its top weapons. But then, almost out of nowhere, came the kind of news that can completely flip the narrative of a team's week. Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel Sr. were spotted back at practice, helmets on, pads strapped, and actually running drills. That might sound like a small thing to a neutral fan, but to Washington supporters who've been living in injury hell this season, it was nothing short of a miracle. Dan Quinn confirmed it earlier in the week. Yes, both McLaurin and Samuel would participate in practice heading into Week 8's primetime showdown with Kansas City. But fans weren't ready to believe it just yet. They'd heard this story before, especially with McLaurin. It always started the same way. He's trending in the right direction. He's ramping up activity. He's close to returning. And then, just like that, he'd be ruled out after a few stretches and walk-throughs. 4 straight games of that cycle had crushed any remaining optimism among the fan base. Samuel, on the other hand, had tried to fight through his heel issue until it became impossible to continue. When Washington finally decided to sit him down, many wondered whether his body would bounce back in time for the team to salvage its season. That's what makes this week's development such a massive deal. Both of them really practicing, represents more than just the potential return of 2 elite playmakers. It's a psychological turning point for a team that has been teetering between rebuilding and competing. The Commanders have struggled to establish an offensive identity without their stars. Jayden Daniels' mobility gave them some spark early in the season, but without McLaurin's route precision and Samuel's yards after catch brilliance, the offense became predictable. Defenses didn't have to respect the deep ball. They didn't have to worry about quick screens turning into 40-yard gains. Everything shrank, and the team's confidence shrank with it. Now, with both veterans potentially returning, the entire locker room feels a shift. Marcus Mariota, who'll be under center this week with Daniels sidelined, must be breathing a huge sigh of relief. The veteran knows what it's like to be thrown into difficult situations, but having real weapons on the outside makes all the difference. When McLaurin and Samuel are on the field together, they complement each other perfectly. McLaurin's crisp route running and ability to win one-on-one battles force defenses to respect the outside, while Samuel's physicality and creativity after the catch open up all kinds of possibilities for short and intermediate throws. Add in tight end Logan Thomas and rookie back Brian Robinson Jr., and suddenly Mariota doesn't look so isolated anymore. It's also worth remembering how much McLaurin means to this franchise beyond the stat sheet. He's been the heart of the Commanders' offense since he was drafted, the kind of player who shows up early, does things the right way, and commands respect from everyone in the building. His absence has been felt not just on the field, but in the locker room, where younger players look to him for leadership. His off-season contract standoff didn't help matters. Missing the entire summer hurt his rhythm, and when he finally returned, he was playing catch-up physically and mentally. He tried to push through, but the injuries piled up. So seeing him now, moving smoothly again, helmet glinting under the Ashburn sun, that's a sign of hope for a team that's been running on fumes. Deebo Samuel Sr., meanwhile, brings a completely different kind of energy. The guy is a spark plug, tough, relentless, and downright explosive when healthy. Washington brought him in for exactly that reason, to inject firepower and versatility into an offense that had gone stale. He's not the same Deebo from his 49ers peak, but even at 80%, he's a nightmare for defenders to bring down. His heel issue was concerning, especially since that kind of injury can linger if not managed properly, but a week off seems to have done wonders. At Thursday's practice, he wasn't just jogging routes or taking mental reps. He was cutting hard, accelerating, and laughing with teammates, all signs that he's feeling like himself again. For a 3-4 team staring down the barrel of Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, This is exactly the kind of boost they needed. Because let's be real, going into Arrowhead with a banged-up offense and a backup quarterback is a recipe for disaster. But if McLaurin and Samuel are truly ready to go, that changes the math. Suddenly, Washington has two legitimate game breakers who can tilt the field in their favor. It gives offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury more flexibility with play calling, allowing him to mix tempo, disguise formations, and get creative with motion, something he hasn't been able to do in weeks. Of course, having your stars back doesn't guarantee victory. Joe Witt Jr.'s defense still needs to figure out how to slow down Kansas City's machine-like offense. The Chiefs just got wide receiver Rashee Rice back from suspension, and Mahomes has been spreading the ball around better than ever. Travis Kelce remains unstoppable. The running game has quietly found its rhythm, and the Chiefs' offensive line is giving their quarterback all the time he needs. So yeah, Washington has its work cut out. But in football, momentum and belief matter just as much as X's and O's. And right now, for the first time in a while, the Commanders have a reason to believe again. Dan Quinn deserves some credit for that. His approach since taking over has been methodical, patient, and transparent. He's not rushing anyone back just for short-term gain. When he says McLaurin and Samuel are participating in practice, it's because they've cleared every internal threshold and are ready to compete. Quinn knows the difference between cautious optimism and false hope, and fans appreciate that. They've been through enough empty promises over the years to recognize authenticity when they see it. And that's what this feels like, genuine progress, not just lip service. Still, there's a nervous energy among fans. Everyone's cautiously watching for updates from each session, scanning social media clips, zooming in on practice photos to see how McLaurin's cutting or how Samuel's moving. The emotional roller coaster of being a Commanders fan continues, but at least now it's heading uphill. There's even talk that if Washington can somehow pull off a shock win on Monday night, the entire outlook of the season could change. From 3-4 to 4-4, with a bye week ahead and their stars back in rhythm. That's not just survival, that's a fresh start. In the bigger picture, this game isn't just about the standings. It's about restoring pride and belief in a locker room that's been tested to its limits. It's about reminding fans why they fell in love with this team in the first place, not for perfect records or highlight reel plays, but for resilience, grit, and the ability to fight through adversity. And who better to embody that spirit than Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel Sr., two warriors who've been counted out, doubted, and now have a chance to silence everyone under the bright lights of Monday Night Football. When kickoff comes and the national cameras pan across the field, fans will hold their breath, hoping to see number 17 and number 19 lined up wide, ready to make noise again. If they do, the Commanders' offense instantly transforms from predictable to dangerous, from struggling to confident. It won't be easy, nothing about this season has been, but it finally feels like Washington is getting some of its swagger back. And after weeks of doom and gloom, that's worth celebrating. Because football is as much about timing as it is about talent, and this might just be the perfect time for a turnaround. The Commanders have weathered storms, endured losses, and faced more questions than answers. But with McLaurin and Samuel back in the mix, the script is ready to be rewritten. Maybe, just maybe, this is where the story starts to change. If you're enjoying the coverage, make sure to smash that like button and drop a comment with your thoughts on the Commanders' latest moves. We want to hear from you. All right. Let's dive deep into this because what's been happening around the Washington Commanders locker room right now is nothing short of explosive. If you've been following the NFL lately, you already know that rookie quarterback Jayden Daniels has been the center of attention for a while, both for his electrifying performances and his growing frustration with how things have been going under head coach Dan Quinn. But now, things have reached a boiling point. Daniels finally broke his silence after weeks of tension, and the words he used were as sharp as a dagger. "We played scared. That's unacceptable." That's not just criticism. That's a public indictment of leadership, of philosophy, of everything the Commanders' offense has been doing under Quinn's supposedly defensive-minded discipline. And the way Daniels said it? Calm, composed, but cutting. The kind of statement that shakes a locker room to its core. Let's unpack what led to this. For weeks, fans have been noticing that something's off with the Commanders' offensive rhythm. The explosiveness that Daniels showed at LSU, that fearless, dual-threat energy that made him a Heisman-level player, seems to have been caged. He's been forced into a conservative system, one that values ball control over creativity, caution over chaos. And sure, some would argue that's what a rookie quarterback needs: structure, protection, training wheels. But Jayden isn't your typical rookie. This guy thrives in chaos. He reads pressure like a veteran, and his ability to turn broken plays into touchdowns is exactly what made him special. So, when he stood in front of the press and dropped that bomb, we played scared. He wasn't just talking about one game. He was calling out a culture of fear that's been growing under Dan Quinn's leadership. People close to the team have been whispering for weeks that Daniels hasn't been happy. During practice, he's been seen shaking his head after play calls. On the sidelines, cameras caught subtle moments. That look of disbelief after a third-and-long screen pass, or the frustration after another run up the middle that goes nowhere. It's been building. And after yet another disappointing loss, one where the Commanders looked hesitant, predictable, and uninspired, Daniels finally let the world know what's been brewing behind closed doors. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't slam the podium. But his tone carried the weight of every frustrated player who feels like they're being held back by coaching decisions. Now, let's talk about Dan Quinn for a second. When he took the job in Washington, he brought that old-school, defense-first mentality. Toughness. Accountability. The kind of grinded-out football philosophy that worked back in the early 2000s. But this is 2025. The game has evolved. Offenses are built on tempo, spacing, and confidence. Players like Jayden Daniels aren't meant to be contained. They're meant to be unleashed. Quinn's insistence on playing it safe, on limiting risk even when it kills momentum, has been a sore point not just for Daniels, but reportedly for several players in the locker room. You can sense it when they talk. There's a stiffness, a hesitancy, a lack of joy. It's like they're afraid to make a mistake, and that's the very thing Daniels called out. We played scared. That's not just a statement about one game plan. It's a reflection of an entire mindset. Imagine being Jayden Daniels right now. You're one of the most talented young quarterbacks in the league. You've got the tools, the vision, the swagger. You've got fans chanting your name. And yet, every Sunday, you're walking into a game plan that feels like it's designed to clip your wings. You see opportunities downfield, but the play call tells you to check it down. You feel the energy of the crowd begging for something big, but your headset says, keep it safe. Eventually, that eats at you. And when you're wired like Daniels, when your whole identity as a player comes from playing fearless football, it's only a matter of time before you snap. What he said wasn't just frustration. It was honesty. Brutal, necessary honesty. The media's reaction has been immediate and divided. Some analysts are saying Daniels crossed a line, that calling out the coach publicly is a rookie mistake that could backfire. Others are applauding him for saying what everyone else has been thinking. And let's be real, there's a reason his words hit so hard. Because they're true. Watch the tape. You'll see an offense that hesitates, that second-guesses itself, that looks unsure of what it wants to be. That's not on the players. That's on leadership. And when your young franchise quarterback has to be the one to say it out loud, it's a sign that something deeper is wrong. Behind the scenes, sources say things got tense right after the press conference. Quinn reportedly called Daniels in for a private meeting, and while no one knows exactly what was said, word is that voices were raised. The team is trying to spin it as a passionate discussion. But let's not kid ourselves. This is a rift. When your quarterback openly challenges your coaching philosophy, that's not something that just disappears with a handshake. That's the kind of moment that defines seasons, sometimes even careers. The locker room is now split between those who side with the fiery young leader who wants to win his way, and those who believe in staying loyal to the coach's system, no matter how flawed it might be. What makes this even juicier is that Daniels isn't just some rookie trying to find his voice. He's already the face of the franchise. His jersey is selling like crazy. He's the one putting butts in seats, the one giving this fan base hope after years of mediocrity. So, when he speaks, people listen. And if the front office is smart, they'll listen too. Because if this relationship between Daniels and Quinn keeps deteriorating, we could be looking at a full-blown crisis. One that might force the team to choose between their new generational talent and a veteran coach whose style may no longer fit the modern game. Fans are already taking sides. Social media has been on fire. On one side, you've got those defending Quinn, saying he's trying to protect Daniels from getting overwhelmed too early, that this is part of the learning curve. On the other, you've got a growing movement of fans saying, let the kid play. They want to see Daniels unleashed, doing what he does best, improvising, attacking, making defenses pay. It's a philosophical battle, and it's playing out not just on the field, but in the comments, the tweets, the debates on sports radio. Everyone has an opinion, and no one's neutral anymore. There's also something symbolic about this whole situation. It's the classic clash between the old guard and the new generation. Quinn represents the old NFL, disciplined, structured, risk-averse. Daniels represents the new wave, fearless, dynamic, emotionally expressive. What we're watching isn't just a team struggling, it's a culture shift in real time. And as uncomfortable as it is, these kinds of confrontations are often what push teams and leagues forward. But it comes at a cost. If Quinn doesn't adapt, he risks losing not just his locker room, but his credibility. If Daniels doesn't find a way to balance his fire with diplomacy, he could be labeled as difficult, even when he's right. Insiders say that several veteran players actually support Daniels privately. They've seen how often aggressive ideas get shut down in meetings. They've felt the frustration of watching games slip away because the team played not to lose instead of playing to win. So when Daniels spoke out, it wasn't just his voice, it was the echo of a silent majority. The difference is, he had the courage to say it out loud. And that changes everything. Once a leader breaks that silence, you can't go back to pretending everything's fine. What happens next will define the Commanders' season. Will Quinn loosen up and give Daniels more freedom to run the offense his way? Or will he double down, assert his authority, and risk alienating his star player? Either way, the balance of power has shifted. The rookie just challenged the coach publicly, and he did it with conviction. That's not something you ignore. You can't put that genie back in the bottle. And honestly, maybe that's exactly what Washington needs. A little chaos, a little honesty, a spark of rebellion to jolt the franchise out of its safe, sleepy habits. Daniels' quote, "We played scared," is going to be replayed all season. It's going to haunt Quinn every time he calls a conservative play. It's going to motivate Daniels every time he takes the field. And it's going to divide opinions across the league. But one thing's for sure. This is the moment Jayden Daniels became more than just a rookie quarterback. He became a voice, a leader, and maybe even the catalyst for real change in Washington. Whether that ends in triumph or disaster, one thing's certain. This story is just getting started, and the NFL is watching every move. Thanks for tuning into District Command Central. Make sure to subscribe and follow us for all the Commanders news you need. Until next time, keep the faith and hail to the Commanders.